financial planning business for TD Waterhouse, and so this is a little dear to my heart, this question. And the question is around financial planning. Have you, over your career, set a financial plan for yourself? And if so, how did you go about doing it? Did you have an advisor, or did you do it on your own?
Well, I had the greatest advisor in the world. My dad was a wonderful man, and of course he worked for Bell Telephone for 35 years, and he was a very conservative man, and I think that's the very typical Russian sort of way. His dad came over and worked very hard, and he had a farm, and he would take eggs into town, and he would take in milk into town to sell, and so we came from a really conservative family. And I remember in 1978, I was making $24 a week playing junior hockey in Sault Ste. Marie, where I opened my first TD bank account in Sault Ste. Marie in 1978, $24. And
that's big money.
Back then it was. And then so in June when I signed in WHA, obviously, I got a tremendous signing bonus. I had a $250,000 signing bonus, and back in those days was a huge amount of money. And I remember, like every typical 17-year-old, first thing I was going to do was buy a car. So I remember I was flying from Indianapolis to Vancouver to do a press conference, and my dad was leaving Indianapolis. He was coming home because he had to go back to work. And I remember saying, as I always said, "Can I borrow $20?" And when I asked him if I could borrow $20, he handed me a $100 bill, and he said, "I know you'll pay me back now." So I had $100, first time I ever had $100 on me. And so I said, "I'm going to buy this car. I want to buy a car." And he said, "Okay." And he wrote me a check for $5,000, and he said, "Go get whatever you want." So I got a used Trans Am for $3,800, I believe. So I guess the moral of the story was he taught me from a young age to be really conservative, and that's the way I sort of lived my whole life. I was not a big risk taker. I was never an adventurous guy to invest into things I didn't really know anything about. So I was always sort of conservative, and the advice I always give young guys who play in the NHL, just be a hockey player and put your money away. There's only so many people that are great investors in real estate or businesses or restaurants that they own. So I was always very conservative. So from a young age, right in 1978, my sort of passion was to be conservative, be financially secure for the rest of my life, and not be a big risk taker. And that's the advice I give my kids. That's the advice that I would give any young hockey player.
That's great. And so today, because obviously you're in a different financial situation, do you still look at that plan and understand how it helps you?
And, from my point of view, I was never, and it's probably from my parents, my mom and dad were never overspenders. They were never outlandish. I mean, my goodness, when I was 10, my dad was borrowing $10 from his mother so he could buy my hockey skates for the upcoming season. So, we came from a close family, but we didn't come from a wealthy family by any means. And so I think you learn that hard work and the effort you put in to not be a risk taker. And so I've always sort of lived that way. I'm not a flamboyant guy, and I'm not a kind of guy that needs to have a lot of cars or buy a lot of things to make myself feel good. So I've always stayed conservative, and I live the same way today.
So you probably get asked to invest in a number of different things. So how do you go through the process of understanding what is a good investment, what isn't?
Well, for me, again, it's what I know and what I understand. And the people around me, I'm very lucky. I have a business manager, I have a CFO, I have an accountant, and we sort of sit down. And the one thing I've learned in my lifetime is you don't know everything. And for people that think they do, those are the people that really get themselves into trouble. And from my point of view, I'm always, again, if somebody wants me to make an investment, we thoroughly read through it. We look at what's the good thing about it and what's the bad thing about it. And most importantly, I don't risk more than 10% of what our family net worth is. It's just not worth it to me to risk everything because I've worked too hard to get to the position I'm at because of the game of hockey.
Yeah, which is great. So you had mentioned earlier that you have educated your kids a little bit on savings and that. So maybe we could just talk about it a little bit more, because it's interesting. In Canada, about 56% of parents, when we ask them, have not talked to their kids about finance or saving for retirement. Can you maybe talk about, from just your 5 kids as well as your son who's now going through sports, like what are you talking to them about and how are you helping them?
The really unique thing about our kids is we're very lucky that they're really good kids, and we're very proud of the fact that they're very respectful. You know, my son was fortunate enough, he had a baseball scholarship. We sat down and he got drafted and he got offered a very nice signing bonus to turn professional. And so I remember being 18 years old and thinking I knew everything and realizing that I didn't. And I'm sitting there with my son thinking, okay, he probably thinks he knows everything, but I know he doesn't. So that's life. And so we sat down and talked about all the sort of pros and cons of going the college route and having a career as a college athlete, or jumping and turning pro at the age of 18. And so, you know, he had a tremendous scholarship at San Diego State, and when we sat down, I told the coaches at San Diego State that it was his decision and I would just give him the advice as a father and as a professional athlete. And so, you know, when he decided to turn pro and he got his signing bonus, same thing, you know, I said to him, you know, that's good and it's in the bank now and you don't get to touch it. So he was a little bit luckier than I was. He already had a car at the age of 18, so he didn't have to buy a car. I didn't have that luxury. Yeah, I didn't have that luxury. So you teach them at a young age that, listen, you know, money's not end all. It's, you know, how you treat yourself and how you treat life and how you respect yourself. And so, you know, he's wonderful and he's doing well, and I have another son who's in university. And so the two of them have two different paths completely, but at the end of the day, they're very respectful.
Which is fantastic. Like if you were to look back and just looking at it from your planning and your financial side, would there be anything you would have done different?
I would have tried to make more money.
Is that possible?
You know what? No, I'm really happy with my life. I was lucky in Edmonton. I had some great people and great financial advisors around me. And then when I went to California, the same thing. I've really enjoyed the work of branding the 99. You know, it's been a wonderful life. And my dad always told me, never look back and never say, I can't wait for tomorrow. Enjoy the moment, enjoy the time. But it goes quicker than you think. It really does. And I remember being the age of 22, 23, and people would come in and say, you know, here's your pension plan, and here's what we're going to do when you turn 50 and 55 and 60, and you think, oh, that's forever down the road. And here we are at 51. It goes quickly. So financial planning at a young age is vital and very important.
Before you decide to invest, make sure you do your homework and ensure that the investment is aligned to who you are as an investor, including your asset allocation and your tolerance for risk.